Welcome to the health pickup section. We're going to go ahead and get this rolling and make something like this where you can swap out the geometry though. So you could have a health, pack, a heart, or some kind of potion bottle, or fill in the blank. So let's get into this. To create some placeholder geometry for right now for our health pickup in the game, I'm going to go over to the hierarchy, right click, create 3D object, a cube, and we'll go ahead and reset the transforms and kind of press F so you can get to it here. Go ahead and turn off our ground plane for the moment. And let's create a material for this. So we'll go to materials, grab our player, Control D to duplicate it. Then we can rename it. I'll just do M underscore, let's just call it health. And we'll change this color to a reddish. Maybe give it some metallic tone, why not? And then we can select our cube. Now we can either drag it onto our cube or to the add component. Either way is fine. Let's go ahead and rename this. Call this health icon. Go to the transforms and let's go ahead and resize this. We'll do 0.3 by 0.85 by 0.3. Okay, simple as that. Then we're going to take this and duplicate it. We could call this number 2, and we're going to rotate this on the Z, so we'll just type in 90. It's just easier that way, so press W. Now we're also going to have a glow effect and these kind of like embers or sparkles, whatever you want to call them. So let's go to effects. So we're right clicking, going to effects, and then particle system. And this first one we'll call glow. And we can just click off of it and you'll see the particles. That's fine for right now. So now we have this geometry, we have this glow, and we're also going to have the embers as well. Now we're going to want to have a parent object. So what we could do is we'll right click and we'll create a effect particle system. And this is going to be our parent. We're going to call this health pickup. We can reset the transforms, and in our particle system drop down we're going to turn off emission and shape and the renderer so it's not running, but we want the particle system on there so that the child particles will still play. See why in a second. Let's go ahead and grab our 2 health icons. We'll drag those into it. We'll drag our glow down. So now you can see when I select health pickup, the glow particles are playing, right? And you'll see this throwing star icon, as I like to call it. Alright, so let's go into our glow here, and forgot to reset the transforms. Let's put in 0, 0, 0 in our position. So for our glow, we're going to want to pre-warm this, and if you hover your mouse over it, you'll get some information. And because this is going to be continually looping, we just want it to pre-warm, so it's going to start. We're going to set our start lifetime to 1.5, start speed to 0, and you can quick restart or play or pause. Whoops, oh, I messed up my start lifetime, 1.5. There we go. Okay, let's see, start size, we'll put this at 3. We're going to have a start rotation, but we want this in between 2 constants. So the start rotation, do -180 and 180. And then our start color, let's grab this. We're going to do a kind of light reddish color. Maybe reduce our alpha. We've got our gravity multiplier, our simulation space, our scaling mode. We're going to set this to hierarchy, and we're going to leave all the defaults. I'm going to go ahead and go to emission, and rate over time we're going to change to 2, so it's 2 particles per second, and we're going to add a kind of a burst. So we'll, under our burst, we'll click the plus symbol, and the count, let's set that to 0 cycles 1. Okay, and we're going to turn off shape, and we'll grab our color over lifetime and turn that on, and we can click to get our gradient inspector pulled up. And here we're going to click to put one right here in the middle, and click above to put one here. This top one here, we're just going to grab the transparency and set this to 0. Grab our other transparency and set this to 0 so it fades, something like that. There we go. We'll also check the size over lifetime, and we're going to click this graph. What we'll do is we'll just bring this on over here, and we can drag this anchor down. We'll click our start point and drag the anchor up, so that way it's just got this nice diagonal line. Kind of gives it a little bit of this popping animation for the size. And then for the renderer settings, we have our standard, our default particle texture. We're going to do max particle size. We're going to do 2. And order in layer we can set to 5 for right now. And there we have our glow. So we're going to go ahead, and what we can do is just select our glow and duplicate it, Control D. Go to the top, and we can call this, I would normally call it like sparks, but it's not quite sparks. They're not like flying, so we'll call them embers. And we need to make a change to some of the settings here. So our duration, we want this to be 1. We can go ahead and restart our animation. So we're going to see the glow and the embers at the same time, but we want our embers to be 1, looping pre-warm, and the start lifetime. So we want the particles to last a certain amount of time, right? So start lifetime in seconds, particles will die when its lifetime reaches 0. So we're going to click the arrow over here and select between, random between 2 constants, and we're going to do 0.5 and 0.8. And then our start speed, we want to set a speed for this. So we're going to do a random between 2 constants. We'll do 0.1 and 0.2. Now, our start size of the particles, the actual start size, let's change this also to be random between 2 constants. And it's a little big right now, so we're going to make this 0.2 and 0.3. There we go. Oh, those are looking wonderful. Let's see, so we got our 3D rotation, our simulation space. Let's change this to world. We have scaled, hierarchy, and the culling mode, we can change this to always simulate. Then we want to go to our emission. So we want quite more of these. We want to have a certain number of particles emitted per second. So we're going to change this to random between two constants. We're going to say 4 to 5. We will leave our burst settings here the same. And then we're going to turn on shape. And currently it is set to cone. We will change this to sphere. You can just barely see him in the camera. Very cool, looking cool. So here we have for our shape. And leave this 1. Maybe we'll do 0.2 for the radius thickness. We do want 360. If we needed to rotate these, we could, but right now we actually have the embers already rotated -90 in the X, but we have the option here to rotate the shape as well for how they're emitted. And let's go to color over lifetime. Let's click, and this is the preset, or essentially what we want to add here. So our first color here, we're going to click and make this a yellowish color. Our middle one here will make this the actual red, so then we get that orange fade. So it's looking good there. And we can just pull these other ones off if we need to. So you can change the look of that to really get a feel for it. And if we wanted to create a preset for that, we can click New, and it'll create a preset for this as well. And we can always come in here. So we'll go ahead and close this out. And we'll do size over lifetime. And we can make these pop a little bit. So what we're going to do is click on our graph here. We can drag this up. And I'm going to drag this over to the corner here. Tilt our handle up. And I'm going to add key. Put one here. Add another key. Just a little bit less than 1. There we go. We're going to add a key right here in the middle. I'll probably make this about 0.6. And then this one I might do a little bit less than that. Kind of pop and then bounce a little bit the size wise. So we'll add another key, bring this one down just a little bit lower than the grid, and then we'll add another key in between here, bring this down to about 0.4 as well. There we go. There we go. So we got these kind of popping effects. There we go. Okay. Next up is the rotation over lifetime. We'll check that box. And we'll do rotation over lifetime. Let's change this from a constant to random between two constants. And we're going to do -75 and 75. There we go. Then they'll show up rotating around different locations. And let's double check our render settings for anything else. Change the max particle size. I think I might just leave it at 2. Righty, that looks good. And if we select our parent here, we could just hide our, and just barely see it. So maybe this glow, maybe we'll make it, maybe a little bit on the brighter side. So tweaking it a little bit. And then the embers, they are just a little too faint. Let's do... Let's see, for our embers, they're a little dark. Let's change their start color to more of this yellowish white and just increase the alpha all the way up. We don't really need an alpha in this case. That is totally fine. And let's look at our color over lifetime. And kind of mess with these settings to kind of get that look a little bit more. So at this point in time, you'll see we kind of get like a little bit of a dark black glow around our particles. And that's because it's using the default unlit particles. And that's fine, but really what we're going to end up wanting to do is just use a white particle material that's full white, and then use a texture sheet animation where we could use a better sprite so that we won't have that black kind of glow on the particle. For right now, we'll leave that there until we get a texture sheet animation set up. Now we need to have a HealthPickup script. So we'll go into our scripts folder. Let's go ahead and right click and create a new C# script. We'll call this HealthPickup. And then let's go ahead and select, we're going to select our parent prefab here. Minimize our particle system. And I'm just going to drag the HealthPickup script onto it. And let's go ahead and double click the HealthPickup script and load that up. Go ahead and delete the start and update methods. We're going to start with, we're going to have an audio clip, and we'll call this HealthPickup audio for right now. And we're going to have a method here, void on trigger enter. We'll delete the private again, so we have our on trigger enter method. And I forgot to set up the trigger on our object. We'll save this. Go back to our HealthPickup All right, so we have our health pickup, and we want to set up a collider. So I'm going to add component, and I'll just type in collider. Let's do a sphere collider in this case. So we want our center to be 0, 0, 0, and our radius is quite big. We could hit edit, but let's go ahead and drag the radius text, and we'll just drag that down and zoom in. And looks like 0.52 is good to go. Let's go ahead and save this. And I forgot again, we need to select isTrigger. So this collider is a trigger ready to go. Then in our script, we want it to trigger what? Well, the first thing we want it to do is we want it only to be colliding with the player, no other objects. We want it to only work, this trigger to be if it's colliding with the player. So we want to specify, okay, the other object that collides with it, we want to say other.getComponent. Oops, slow load time. Type in player controller, since this is running a method, parentheses, and semicolon. Awesome. So now for the other object that collides with it, we're getting the script player controller. So we need to assign this to a variable so that we can access the variables that are on the player. So what we're going to do is put our equals to assign it, and we're going to create a player controller data type and name this variable player. It's just short and sweet. Now, what if something, for some reason, has the player controller and, I don't know, something happens? You might get like the player is null, or that null reference exception error. So what we could do to make sure we're not going to run into that is we'll just check to see that the player is not equal to nothing. So we'll say if player is not equal to null, which means nothing, then do what? So checking for the player. So then if we're going to the player, and this gets the component, the player controller script, and what we're looking for is going to be the health, which will return the current health. And we want to make sure that our health is less than our max health. So you can't add health to your health if you're maxed out in this case. So then we can say, okay, we want our health has to be, this is an if statement, if our player.health is less than our player's max health, then we want to get the player and run the method change health, and in parentheses we got to put the amount. So we're going to say maybe this health pickup is worth 10 health, right? And we put our semicolon. So when the player collides with the health pickup, it'll check to see that we have less than the max health, and then it'll add 10 to our health. Then we want to destroy this health pickup game object, so it won't be in our scene anymore. Then we also want to go to our player, and we're going to run that method play sound, because it has the speaker or the audio source, right? And the sound that we're going to play is whatever we're assigning to our health pickup, which is the health pickup audio, which we don't have an audio file right now, but if you get one, you can assign it, and then it will play that sound right after deleting the object and adding 10 to the player health. And we can save this. And what we might also do is we have change health to 10, but maybe we want to put this health pickup script on several different health objects. So in this case, let's go ahead and serialize field, and we'll do an integer for, we'll say health, maybe amount, and then we'll take this and replace the 10 here, and we could set this to a default value of 10. Why not? So the default health amount is 10, and so when we change health, it'll grab that variable and add that to it. So we can save this, and we'll come back over to our health pickup, and you'll see we have no audio clip yet, and our health amount to 10. So say maybe it's a health pack, and maybe it's worth 50 health or something like that. So we'd be able to set that up for several health pickup objects. And so now we want to go into our prefab folder. And let's save this prefab for our health pickup. We'll drag this down to our prefabs, and now we have a default health pickup. So let's save our scene, and I think it's about time that we should set up a small level that's a little bit more interesting than this. So let's set up a dungeon, and you can click this next video for us to get started on that.